Well, good evening, everyone. I do apologise for the delay in starting this meeting. So we are effectively about 7 minutes late. So it's 7 minutes past 6 o'clock. It's on the 3rd of April, 2023. Here we are at Lichfield District Council for the Planning Committee meeting. The first item on the agenda, and I'd just like to say a big welcome to those who are also watching online. I know there are quite a few people who are watching this remotely, so good evening to you. The first item on the agenda is apologies for absence, and I have 4 apologies. They are Councillor Powell, Councillor Ray, Councillor Latham, and Councillor Salter. I think that completes the list. Thank you very much. Thank you. The second item on your agenda, members, is declarations of interest. So could I please have a show of hands if you have such a declaration to make? Councillor Anketel, please.
Thank you, Chair. I find I know the objector for the second planning application, Mr. Maguire. That's planning application number 22/01/709/COU in Chapel Lane.
Thank you very much, Councillor Anketel. And Councillor Baker, please.
Similarly, it's not a declaration of interest, but just to note that I have met with the residents of Chapel Lane with regard to 22/01/709 COU change of use. I'm currently not predetermined.
Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. And Councillor Matthews.
Same applies to me, Chairman. I also met with the residents, but I'm not predetermined. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Matthews. Is that all the declarations of interest? Thank you very much. We can now move on to item 3 on the agenda, which is the minutes of the previous meeting. The meeting was held here on the 6th of March. That's 4 weeks ago tonight. You've all had, you've all had a copy of the record of the minutes of that event. If you're happy for me to sign them, I will do. Can I please have a show of hands if you're happy that that is a true and correct record of the meeting which took place on the 6th of March? Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, I'll sign in a few minutes. Item 4 on your agenda, members, is of course the main reason that we're here this evening, and that is to hear the planning applications, and we have 4 of them this evening. The first one, which we are about to discuss, is at Clifton Campbell, and it's 22/00110/FULM. It's land at Highfields Farm, Clifton Lane, Tamworth. To take us through this application, I shall now call upon the planning officer, which is Sarah Atherton. And so Sarah, if you'd kindly take us through this, I'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. The application proposes the installation of a solar farm comprising ground-mounted solar voltaic panels with a generating capacity of up to 49.9 megawatts, together with all associated works, equipment and necessary infrastructure.
Excuse me, can you pull your microphone closer, please?
Of course. Is that better?
Yes.
Okay, I'll start again. The application proposes the installation of a solar farm comprising ground-mounted solar photovoltaic panels with a generating capacity of up to 49.9 megawatts, together with all associated works, equipment and necessary infrastructure. The application is being reported to committee due to objections from members of the public and the consideration of senior officers. This plan shows the application site in red, outlined in red, sorry. Technology's failed me. Clifton Lane runs through the middle of the site in a north to south direction. Thank you. The site is comprised of a number of agricultural fields that are currently in agricultural use and has an irregular form extending to circa 71 hectares. The surrounding area is predominantly rural in character, with residences and farms interspersed across the surrounding area. The settlement of Clifton Campbell lies to the north of the site, Thorpe Constantine lies to the east, and Hornton to the northwest. 2 residential dwellings, Highfields Farmhouse, which is grade 2 listed, and Highfields Cottage lie between the northern and southern sections of the site. These photos take us through the site. So this looks from the western periphery of the site down to, in photograph 1, Highfields Farmhouse, and photograph 2, back across the fields towards Clifton Campbell. The church spire is discernible on the horizon. Photograph 3 looks back from the northern end of the site to the south, and notes the incline in the land. Photograph 4 is from the existing field access, which is also proposed to be used for the development. Photograph 5 looks north from that access as well, so to the northwest. Photograph 6 looks into that field and is taken from an elevated position. Photograph 7 looks from that access back up through the fields, and you can see Clifton Lane on your left. Photograph 8 is taken from the other side of Clifton Lane, looking into the other northern fields of the development. You can see the existing electricity infrastructure running through the site. Photograph 9 is taken from the middle of this section between 2 of the fields. Again, looks back to the electricity infrastructure, and you can see the field boundary. Photograph 10 looks at the Highfields house, which is behind the pylon on the right. Sorry, Highfields Cottage, which is behind the pylon on the right. Photograph 11 is taken from a track to the southeast of Highfields Cottage and looks back towards the infrastructure. And photograph 12 looks back from that same point to Highfields Cottage. Photograph 13 from that point looks across the southernmost fields towards Clifton Rough, which is the woodland shown on the left-hand horizon. And photograph 14 looks from adjacent Clifton Rough back down through the site. Again, you can see the electricity infrastructure. Photograph 15 looks across the fields back towards Clifton Lane, and photograph 16 is taken from the churchyard at Highfields. This is a representative viewpoint which shows the panels in the fields opposite and to the right or north, west of Highfields Farmhouse. And this is a representative viewpoint taken from the track adjacent to Highfields Cottage. This is the application site and layout, which shows the photovoltaic panels. And shows the areas of landscaping proposed. The panels on average will reach a height of 3 metres with a maximum height of 3.2 metres. They measure 1.8 by 2 metres each and will be arranged in tables of 24 to 48, depending on the location. The panels are fixed and will not track the movement of the sun. Due to concerns that were raised about the impact of the development on the grade 2 listed farmhouse, which lies at the centre. So this is the grade 2 listed farmhouse. Initially, upon submission, panels were proposed to cover this area in the field. Following consultation with the council's conservation officer, these have been pulled back to lessen the impact upon the setting of this listed building. The conservation officer is now satisfied that the impact on that listed building is less than substantial, and it falls therefore to be considered in the planning balance. There will be substations and a point of connection within the site. The point of connection is here and enables feed into the grid. Substations located around the site enable the electricity generated to the panel to be then transferred to the point of connection. Within the existing hedge boundaries, there'll be high tensile wire fencing set between timber posts. This prevents accidental and intended access to the site, however provides for wildlife to travel through it. This is an example illustration of the panels and the rough angle at which they set. Each table will be spaced by between 2 to 6 metres, so between the rows. Landscaping proposed beneath will be grazed by sheep for 6 months of the year. This is an example of the substation, and I say example because we've got a condition securing that full details will be supplied to be determined at a later date. And this is an example of the fencing, the gap beneath and the gate to the right, and the gate shown on the right preserve access to the site for wildlife, small mammals. The visual and landscape impact on the location by the development have been considered, both in isolation for this scheme and in the cumulative impact with a recently approved scheme at Hornton. The coloured lines across the map show the various rights of way from which the impact's been assessed. The council has employed specialist consultants to review the landscape and visual impact assessment undertaken and submitted in support of the application. In addition to the initial review, 2 further subsequent sets of details have been supplied by the applicant to reach the point where the council's consultants consider, both in terms of visual impact and in terms of the impact on the landscape and the landscape character, that the development can be achieved without causing the level of impact at which planning permission shouldn't be granted. A full landscaping proposals are included. You can see the existing hedgerow boundaries, which are shown within the site. It's proposed that these will be enhanced to further help screen the development from near and far views, and additional mitigation for great crested newts is proposed at this location, which is existing but is proposed to be enhanced as part of the development. Additional tree planting and hedgerow planting will occur at the green locations through the site. That concludes my presentation. The application was supported by an agricultural land classification report, which assesses the land to be at level grade 3B. Information's come to light, and I'll pass over to the chair now.
Yes, thank you very much indeed there to Sarah. Thank you, Sarah. I originate in the farming community, so although I don't know a huge amount about land, I know a little bit. And I've just been doing a little bit of research, actually, courtesy of the Natural England Guide to Assessing Development Proposals on Agricultural Land. So over the weekend, I've done quite a bit of research, and my own view is that looking at the type of crops that are being regularly grown in that area, my assessment, and I agree it's only a subjective assessment, is that this land would appear to be, in general, better than 3B, which is what it's quoted as being in the report. Now, I also went on to the maps which were supplied by Natural England, and they show, albeit in not great detail, they show the general state of that land, the if you like, the classification of that land. It's color coded on a map. Now, the color coding suggests that that land is either 2, 3, or 3A. Now, that probably is slightly arcane, but what it does mean is that it's capable of producing fairly high quality foodstuffs for human consumption. Now, we're obviously talking here about energy security, and I fully understand that, but there is another side to that coin, which is food security. And that's something which the government takes quite seriously, and that's why it has got this classification, because ideally they don't really want development on land which is classified, don't want that land being used for if you like, solar panels or other building, if it can be maintained for energy, food production for human consumption. So this map that I've looked at says quite unequivocally that this land is either 2, 3, or 3A. Now, I think in that sense, it brings into doubt the, I don't say the validity, but I think it weakens the case somewhat for covering 170 acres, 70 odd hectares of land with solar panels, if it can be ascertained that the land is actually supporting the production of food crops on a regular basis, which would be in line with a classification above 3B. So that's my take on it at the moment. As I say, the source of that information I have been using is Natural England's own information, which is available to anyone who wants to see it. As I say, it's the guidance and the guide to assessing development proposals on agricultural land. It was updated in February 2021, and it says here that it applies to England. The document that I've read and the information I've looked at, the maps, and also my local knowledge suggests that 3B is a classification which is at very best borderline, and I think is equivocal. I'll say no more than that. For that reason, I think we need to bear in mind, or my suggestion is that we bear that in mind. We do consider this application tonight, but with the codicil, if you like, that if that land is shown to be of a higher grade than is suggested in the report at 3B, then this application would then need to come back to this planning committee. So on that basis, that's how we're wishing to proceed, I think, this evening. I'm just going to defer now to the legal officer. Jane, please.
Thank you, Chair. So members, the situation is the report and the officer recommendation, the assessment of this application are all based on the finding that the agricultural land that these solar panels are going to be placed on is a class 3B. That is supported from by evidence from the applicant in the form of the agricultural land classification report. You've heard what your chair said, and he's questioning whether that classification is actually correct. The officers have discussed with the applicant, and the applicant is keen to get a decision, even if it's only in principle tonight, if members were minded to grant. And is keen for members, and officers confirm that members can do this if they are happy to do so, that the application is assessed tonight and discussed by you on the basis that the agricultural land classification is correct as per the report. So the assessment is all done, and the on balance and the planning merits are all weighed up and balanced on the basis of the report itself. If members were happy to proceed on that basis and decided that in principle they were minded to grant permission, they could do so, and permission, but with the caveat that you make a decision in principle, it would then be delegated to the principal planning officer, and permission could be then granted subject to a further investigation, and officers and the chair, I would say, well, let's say officers in consultation with the chair, being satisfied that that agricultural land classification is correct. So you basically be assessing the application in front of you on the basis of its grade B land. There'd be investigations and clarification following that in principle decision. And if it was found that that classification is correct and the information supplied by the applicant and in their report was correct, permission would then be granted. If in fact it was found out that that information was not correct, or there was any equivocation about that, the decision would be brought back to committee. But obviously the next committee is, I think, in June, so that would be quite, and the applicant is concerned about where that would fit in with the timescales going forward for the development. So the option for you members is it is possible to go ahead and consider the application today based on all this assessment and the agricultural land classification, but delegate in principle, if you're minded to grant permission, to the principal planning officer. The alternative is for you to decide to defer the application because you're not satisfied to proceed on that basis. So that is the option in front of members. Your chair is happy with proceeding, as I've explained, for you to consider it tonight. And if you are minded to grant permission, to essentially take an in principle decision, delegate the final issuing the permission to officers, and only if they find that the information is incorrect on the land classification, and they could bring it, it would be brought back to committee. So members, that's the decision you have to make tonight, whether you're going to proceed on that basis. And it is possible to proceed on that basis if you are so satisfied to do so.
Thank you very much. So I very much appreciate the legal advice there from Jane Cotton. You've heard what she has to say. You've heard what I've had to say. Can I just say, by way of precedent, last year, a similar parcel of land, not very far away at Lullington, again for a solar farm, was actually refused by East Staffs District Council. And I think that's probably awaiting an appeal. But so there is precedent, if you like, and that was based upon mainly the concerns about taking out good quality agricultural land for the sake of the solar farm. So there is precedent there. I'm just wishing to say that. On the basis of what the legal officer has said, I am willing to go ahead on that basis. Now, I probably need a seconder to support me in that, and I'm looking to my left at my vice chairman. Thank you very much, Councillor Baker. So that's seconded. Could I have a vote on that, members, please? If you're willing to proceed on that basis, that we discuss it tonight, and then it is predicated upon the land being 3B. If subsequently it can be shown it is higher grade than 3B, then it will come back to this planning committee. So it's been proposed by me, seconded by Councillor Baker. Can I have a show of hands whether you wish to proceed on that basis, please? Those in favour? That's four of us. That's four of us. Those against? Okay. So we're going to defer that. Okay. Members, thank you very much indeed, and I very much appreciate your verdict there, and I appreciate the fact that you have thought through the implications, and that is the decision of this planning committee. That item will be deferred. Thank you. I apologise to anyone who has turned up this evening to speak on that subject, but it will have to be deferred until the next meeting. Thank you. Those of you who've just joined us, my name is Tom Marshall, Councillor Tom Marshall. I'm the chairman of the planning committee here. And we're on to the second item on the list of planning applications on the agenda, which is agenda item 4. This is the second application.
What those names are, those behind.
No, I'm not. No, okay. No, that's fine. That's fine. Yeah. So unfortunately.
To say item 4 on the agenda, which is the planning applications. We've had one this evening. This is the second, and this is 22/01709/COU. This is the 28 to 30 Chapel Lane in Lichfield. So to take us through this application, I'm going to call on Kerry Challoner. Is it you, Kerry? Oh, it's Claire. Sorry. It's all right. I wasn't at the pre-meeting. Claire, you're going to take us through this application, aren't you? So when you're ready, thank you very much indeed. So members, if you'd like to cast your eyes towards the front. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, so this is the application for 28 to 30 Chapel Lane. This is a change of use into a 7-person HMO, which is a house of multiple occupancy. With internal alterations, provision of bin stores and bicycle parking, and the retention of the existing shop. The application site relates to an existing convenience shop and post office with adjoining 6-bedroom dwelling located on the north side of Chapel Lane. If you can see, yeah. The application property is a 2-storey rendered building with amenity area to the rear, which is that area there. And the rear amenity space is enclosed by a 2-metre high brick wall with a gated vehicle and pedestrian access off of Ivanhoe Road, which runs there to the west of the site. The use, sorry, let me click it. Here's the aerial photograph of the site. The use class of the shop is Class E, and this would be retained. So the shop is being retained with no alterations proposed in this respect. There are no changes proposed to the external elevations or the loft area of the building, and a cycle storage shelter for 7 bikes and a bin storage shed are proposed within the rear garden area, which you can see here in photograph 1. Photograph 2 shows you the gate and the side of the property off Ivanhoe Road. And photograph 3 shows you the front elevation. So this is already an existing 6-bedroom property. This is a net increase of 1 bedroom to the property with just internal alterations to form the HMO. The proposed, I'll just go back. The proposed amenity area at the back of the site is considered to be acceptable, and there'll be 7 people sharing the kitchen and bathroom facilities. The applicant has confirmed that soundproofing is being provided, environmental health and the architectural liaison officer have no objections in terms of amenity. So some of the concerns around the site are to do with parking. Highways have no objections to these proposals, and it's conditioned that if it's approved, 1 parking space will remain at the rear of the property. Existing parking is already on street, and it is not considered the addition of one person to the building would exacerbate or cause any significant detrimental impact that would materially impact the overall development or existing situation. Let me just quickly show you. So that's obviously existing block plan. And then we have the proposed, so you can see the amenity space is staying the same. These are the proposed floor plans. So the addition of one bedroom with the kitchen, dining down here, living, and then there's one bedroom downstairs. And then we've got bedrooms on the first floor. So I'll go back before I carry on. So yeah, it's Lichfield's obviously the strategic centre in the settlement hierarchy, and this adds to the housing mix in the area. It's a sustainable location within walking distance of the city centre, the train station and bus routes, and the application is therefore recommended for approval.
Claire, thank you very much indeed for taking us through that. No, I'm awfully sorry that I didn't realise that you were doing that one.
I'm really sorry. So I've got one other thing to say.
Oh, right. Sorry. Yes. Carry on.
No, it's my fault. I did receive comments which were submitted after additional comments from a local resident, which was submitted after the supplementary was finalised. The comments reiterate comments already addressed in the report that I've written, and obviously these are available on the website. The main highlights were about the traffic congestion, parking, safety in terms of parking and road maintenance and quality, but they are available on the website. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That's Claire Staines there, Senior Planning Officer here. Thank you. We have speakers this evening, and we have three. The first one is an objector, Mr. Brian Maguire, who will have 5 minutes. Councillor Chris Spruce, who is here this evening to represent his constituents, will have 10 minutes as the ward councillor, and Mr. George Waitman of Astill Planning Consultants is here on behalf of the applicant, and he will receive 5 minutes during which he can make his address. So if I could call upon the first of those three speakers, please, Mr. Brian Maguire, an objector from Chapel Lane itself. Sir, you have 5 minutes. Your time will start as soon as you start to speak. I'll make sure that you have plenty of time to ensconce yourself at the microphone as well. With 4.5 minutes elapsed, you will be notified that you have 30 seconds left, and upon the expiry of those 30 seconds and the full 5 minutes, you will need to stop speaking immediately if you are still speaking at the time. Your time starts as soon as you commence speaking. Thank you.
I represent residents of Chapel Lane and the immediate area to express our strong objections to the planning application to convert a 5-bedroom residential property into a 7-person HMO. There have been 37 formal written objections from 32 separate people, and more than 50 people have attended residents' meetings with Councillor Chris Spruce. The area is comprised of small to medium-sized family homes. The 7-person HMO conflicts with the character and nature of Chapel Lane. The addition of an HMO to the area would only destabilise our community. HMOs are typically inhabited by people who are transient and have no choice as to where they live. Residents who have moved here from areas where HMOs have been introduced noted a related increase in antisocial behaviour. We are concerned by the adverse influence that this could have on local school children who mass around the shop at various times. The plans for the HMO appear to provide very little internal and external communal space, which is crucial if the owner seeks to create a family feel, as stated in the planning consultant's addendum. The amended plans show little evidence of communal furnishing being planned for individual bedrooms, and it certainly appears that living conditions will be cramped. On the matter of living conditions, I now arrive at the crux of the issue. That is, the severity of the effect this development will have on the general living conditions and quality of life of both occupiers and neighbours. First, a significant increase in the noise and disturbance arising from all the additional comings and goings. Second, safe use of the lane will be further jeopardized as the haphazard nature of car parking near the shop will worsen as available space is reduced. Third, as the plan now includes a cycle storage area on site, parking on site is further reduced. All 37 formal objections include concerns around parking and safety issues when using Chapel Lane and Ivanhoe Road T-junction. I quote from Staffordshire Police response. They have a concern over the likelihood that an increase in parked vehicles will cause a safety issue for people using the adjacent junction. Lichfield City Council also noted that as only one parking space is provided, this could present an issue. Historically, there have been incidents outside the shop caused by cars reversing onto the opposite pavement. It is clear from the damaged protection barriers erected then that they are still necessary. There is a proven safety issue here and a concern that is shared by all residents and a local neighbourhood police sergeant. We would urge you not to ignore this issue. This proposal has come far too late for this property, following all the development it has seen over the years. The shop has grown from a small concern in someone's front room to a large, busy business. The northeast elevation of the property has been developed into a 4-bedroom family home, removing what was a storage yard and car park. This HMO will surely over-intensify the use of the property and put an unbearable strain on the immediate area. We know that the fallback position of the property owner is to introduce a 6-person HMO under permitted development rights. We cannot control this, but what we can control is whether there is a general benefit in allowing one extra person in one extra bedroom. The only beneficiary of this entire scheme will be the property owner. Residents will be left with more cars parked in the street, more traffic, more disturbance, and increased risk of antisocial behaviour. The occupants would have less personal space and utilities, as recommended by the Institute of Environmental Health Officers.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Maguire, Brian Maguire there. Thank you for that 5 minutes. You managed to, I think, encapsulate the argument very well on behalf of your residents and neighbours. So I shall now call upon the next speaker. This is Councillor Chris Spruce, who is someone known to, I think, probably everybody in this room, because I think everybody at the back knows him and everybody around this meeting room knows him as well. So Chris, you don't really need any introduction at all, do you? Councillor Chris Spruce will speak for anything up to 10 minutes. As you know, Councillor Spruce, you don't have to speak for 10 minutes, but it is your prerogative to do so if you wish. Thank you. With 30 seconds left, if you are still speaking after 9.5 minutes, you will be notified by Christine Lewis on my left-hand side. Thank you very much. Your time starts as soon as you wish to commence. Thank you.
Thank you. I am here to represent the residents of Chapel Lane and the immediate area to express their strong objections to the planning application to convert a 6-bedroom residential property into a 7-person HMO. There have been 37 formal written objections from 32 separate people, and more than 50 people have attended residents' meeting with me. And I think you will see by what is happening in the room, there is very, very great and sizable disquiet amongst the existing tenants. There's a very strong community spirit among the residents of Chapel Lane. These people are not NIMBYs. They are decent, normal, hard-working people who pay their council tax without question, and they want to keep their community as it is and be heard. The area is comprised of small to medium-sized family houses, and therefore a 7-person HMO conflicts with the character and nature of Chapel Lane dramatically. The addition of an HMO to this area would only destabilise the community. A major part of local planning, I have always believed, has been that changes must fit in with the existing street scene. This application plainly does not do that, but the planning officer's report effectively dismisses this concept as of no matter. No facts or justification are provided to justify that opinion or to give any examples of existing HMOs that have worked within Lichfield district. No tangible benefits will be realised by the community in this application is approved. A 6-person HMO will be bad for the community, but a 7-person HMO will be considerably worse. Any ensuring licence needs to contain enforceable and safeguarding conditions, including competent workers who can monitor and supervise socially challenged residents, plus measures to prevent antisocial behaviour. Bearing in mind all of these points, please accept the extent of the unhappiness of residents in Chapel Lane and Ivanhoe Road. If local democracy means anything to you, I beg you to overturn the planning officer's decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much there to Councillor Chris Spruce. Thank you.
Excuse my clumsiness, Chairman, I've just had my hip replaced.
No, you don't need to apologise. Thank you very much for coming here this evening, and we wish you a speedy recovery as well. If I could now call upon the next speaker, which is Mr. George Waitman of Astill Planning Consultants, the applicant's agent. And Mr. Waitman, you will be familiar with the protocol, I'm sure, having listened to what I've had to say, but I will repeat it just for the sake of clarity. You have 5 minutes. With 30 seconds left, you will be notified of that fact. Your time will start as soon as you commence speaking. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Chair. My name is George Waitman, and I represent Astill Planning Consultants. I'm speaking on
your microphone. Do you want to just press the button until the little red light comes on? That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What? Okay. So the proposed development will convert the existing 6-bedroom dwelling in order to deliver a high-quality 7-person HMO. The HMO scheme will increase local housing choice and positively contribute to the housing mix of the district. Local policy H1, titled A Balanced Housing Market of the Local Development Plan, identifies an imbalance in the housing market and aims to promote the delivery of smaller properties to provide a greater housing choice. This policy supports the proposed development. The proposal only seeks 1 more bedroom in the existing house. It also only seeks a total occupier capacity of 7 persons. Should permission be granted, the occupier capacity would be controlled by virtue of the planning permission granted. This is unlike the existing house, which has no restriction on the total number of occupants which can currently reside there. When considering the design of the proposal, the additional bedroom will by no means result in a detrimental intensification. This is because the design approach has been based upon providing the best possible living environment for future occupants in terms of living circulation, natural light, outlook, ventilation, bedroom size, communal room size, and outdoor space provided. The approach has not taken the manner of providing the maximum number of rooms which could be formed in the property. To these ends, the proposals have been thoughtfully designed to exceed both national design space standards and Lichfield District Council's own HMO guidance. Lichfield's guidance recommends a minimum bedroom size of 6.5 metres. National space standards recommends a minimum room size of 7.5 metres. The applicant wants to provide a high quality scheme above and beyond these minimum standards, with rooms as large as 18.8 metres squared for a single person and 16.7 metres for a single person. Both these measurements are over double national and local space standards for a single occupancy bedroom. A substantial 25.7 metre shared dining and living room space is provided, and a large 19 metre kitchen. Some rooms have en suites, while shared WC facilities are provided on both floors and 2 shared bathrooms are also provided. When considering these design measures, all the future occupants will benefit from a spacious living environment which always provides the best possible shared access to utilities and facilities for all occupiers at all times. This guarantees a high quality living environment as part of the scheme. Although not a planning matter, the applicant wants to reassure the committee that the proposals will be finished to a high standard with quality furnishings to the benefit of occupiers. Concerns have been raised regarding car parking space and the impact on the surrounding highway network. However, the Staffordshire County Council Highways Department have raised no objection. In their deliberation, they acknowledge that the proposals relate only to internal changes to convert a 6-bedroom dwelling to a 7-person HMO. It is this uplift of 1 bedroom which has triggered the applicant's requirement to seek planning permission. The proposal will not cause any greater effect on the surrounding highway network than what could be generated by the existing dwelling or by what the applicant could achieve through permitted development rights. The proposal incorporates 7 secure sheltered bicycle parking spaces and is sustainably located in a primarily residential area with good access to public transport routes and a range of services. While Lichfield City Council's environmental health officers, waste management team and Staffordshire police officers have raised no objections to the proposals. To summarise, the scheme will provide a HMO scheme that exceeds minimum design standards, providing an overall high quality living environment. The proposal positively contributes to the housing mix of the district, all the while not resulting in an over-intensification of the site. The proposal only results in 1 additional bedroom in the existing and will be restricted to 7 occupiers. Therefore, we see no reason or justifiable reason for a refusal. As such, it is respectfully requested that members move to approve the application.
Mr. Wakeman, thank you very much indeed. So there you have it, members. You have the differing opinions of someone representing the local community, that's the objector, who lives there. You've got Councillor Spruce, who is the ward member, and also Mr. Wakeman of Astill Planning Consultants, who is giving you the view from the applicant's perspective. Members, do we have, so you've heard a broad spectrum of opinions there. Members, do we have anyone who wishes to ask questions or make comments on the application so far, please? Okay, so I'm going to take Councillor Baker first, Councillor Baker, and then Councillor Cross. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairman. Chair, sorry.
You call me Chair.
That's all right then. Some observations. I'm aware, there is a need for HMOs. They do provide accommodation for those that would otherwise not have it. However, I feel that this is just the wrong place for an HMO. As you've seen from the pictures, it is a residential area of fairly small houses, long-standing residents, and I think an HMO of this size will have a knock-on effect on the residential amenity, not just from the car parking, but also the impact on what is actually a very viable business there in the shop at the moment, and that serves as an amenity to the local residents. And I would have a fear that an HMO, particularly if it encompassed more cars, would equally damage that facility that's available to residents. So basically, I think it's the wrong place for this form of residency, given the nature of the area. The pictures there look lovely, but actually you walk down that road at a busy time and, well, you're lucky to walk down the middle of the road, let alone on the pavements, for all the cars that are already parked there. So I think the comment about there is off-street parking available is a little inaccurate.
Councillor Baker, thank you very much indeed. Councillor Cross, please, and then Councillor Matthews. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So what we've actually got here is a family of 6 sharing this house and converting it to 7. So we're increasing the occupancy here. I've got a little bit of knowledge of housing multiple occupation because I was an inspector of Oxford City Council purely on housing multiple occupation a few years ago. And in Oxford, they probably still have, but there were many, many houses there, and it was a full-time job with the fire officer. One of the things that concerns me here is that or a couple of things. One, there is no communal entrance that I can see other than coming through the kitchen and then through and up the stairs. The other thing is there's nothing about fire safety means of escape here, which would not be acceptable in Oxford. And you've got 6 people at least upstairs. There should be some form of means of escape here. And if you did put a means of escape, which is usually an external staircase, that's going to take up more of the parking space, which means another vehicle to go out on the road. Now, I don't see any report in the documents I have before me here of any consultation with the fire officer. And I think on this one in particular, there should be a consultation with the fire officer and their thoughts on it. Looking on the landings there, that would never qualify in Oxford either. All those doors coming out onto the landing, in my opinion and past experience, is so dangerous for 6 people, individuals, not a family, but 6 individual people all living in a different way and different modes in these rooms. The other point is we've got 37 written objections. That's a lot. And we've got the ward councillor, who we all respect very much so in his judgment. And we have also got concerns from the Staffordshire Police about the parking. And I support what Councillor Debbie Baker has just been saying, absolutely. So I won't repeat all that. But I think there's a lot of concerns here, and it's time that this planning committee start to consider a little bit about the people who have to live with this kind of thing and live around it, as opposed to what is right and wrong from a planning point of view. And I support the residents here, and I support Councillor Debbie Baker, and I propose that this is rejected.
Thank you very much. So Councillor Cross, that's a formal proposal for refusal, isn't it? You're suggesting that?
It is.
Thank you.
It is, Chair. Thank you.
Councillor Baker, I don't think you actually proposed refusal.
No, but I'm happy to second that.
You are happy?
Sorry, do we need reasons for
Yes,
the
yes.
refusal?
We will need refusal. Yes, we will. Yeah. Let me just make a note. Okay. Thank you very much. Have you finished, Councillor Cross? Apart from the fact that we are going to need reasons for refusal.
Yes, I've finished, Chair. Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to perhaps start that process now, then, please, with those reasons for refusal?
Yes, thank you. In accordance with the Housing Multiple Occupation Acts, I think it was 57 and 61, if I remember correctly, there is no means of escape shown here whatsoever. And I believe that 6 people on that upper floor would need to have some independent means of escape. And also we've got quite substantial objections from the residents, which I feel we should support. And we have concerns by the residents and the police with regard to parking, which has not been satisfied.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, could I add, if Councillor Cross agrees, the impact on the residential amenity?
Yes, we add that as well, please, Chair.
Yes, of course. I'm going to ask Artemis Christofi now just to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. And before I pass over to the case officer to come in on those reasons, I just want to add in terms of the fire safety issue and means of escape that has been commented on, although it's very valid and it is quite prevalent in modern construction, it is actually a building regulations matter that would be picked up separately from planning, and it's not a material planning consideration at this point. So I just want to highlight that, and therefore we could not sustain that as a reason for refusal and defend that at appeal as part of a planning appeal.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, of course. I'll now ask the legal officer. This is Jane Cotton to come in. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just so members know what they're actually debating about, we've got a motion to refuse, which has been moved and seconded. One of the first reasons by count was that based on fire safety regulations and safety concerns. Before I go on to the other reasons, you've had advice from Artemis that that's not something that you can consider for a building of this type. there has been some changes to the fire safety regulations and planning applications, but I don't see that they apply to changes of use of this type. They apply to high-rise buildings. So before I continue, could I just ask the mover and the seconder if they would be happy to withdraw that reason for refusal or not?
No, I'm not happy to withdraw it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Cross.
So, you've got the the first reason for refusal is the fire safety concerns, and there's no means of escape in case of a fire. That's right. Yeah.
That's correct.
Yep, thank you. The second one, you talked about the supporting the residents' objections. Now, the residents had a number of objections. It was parking, highway safety, and residential amenity of the occupants and the surrounding neighbours. That's right, isn't it?
That's
Yeah,
correct.
thank you.
That also appears to be the concerns by the staff police as well.
So that's and I know Councillor Baker mentioned that. Just to make sure I've captured everything, it was. I mean, the residents did mention other things like antisocial behaviour, but can I just ask the mover and seconder what specifically they're saying they're including in their reasons for refusal, or have I covered it?
Well, antisocial behaviour, we don't have any knowledge of that, or I've personally not seen that, so I can't comment on that. But in my past experience working with HMOs in a full-time job, there is a lot of antisocial behaviour in those areas. And most of those areas can be seen as antisocial behaviour, the rubbish and bins and everything all around HMSOs.
But Councillor Cross, you've said that you're.
Can I say, I think it just, rather than go into specific behaviours that we know nothing about, that we use what Councillor Cross said earlier, which is impact on the residential amenity.
Yeah, Councillor Cross, could I just come in here probably to assist you slightly as well? Page 51, the bottom of page 51, residential amenity is a subheading. Policy BE1 of the local plan strategy states the proposal should not have a negative impact on amenity, and development should avoid unreasonable levels of disturbance through traffic generation, noise, light, dust, fumes, or other disturbance. I think that probably encompasses an awful lot of what you're trying to say. So if we can perhaps use a little bit of shorthand there and say that you might feel as though it's contrary to policy BE1 of the local plan strategy.
Thank you, Chair. What would we do without you? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So you're talking about residential amenity in terms of noise, disturbance, and what was the other thing, Chair?
Right, okay, well, I'm just reading the text really at page 51. So that is unreasonable levels of disturbance through traffic generation, which I think has been touched on more than once.
Yeah.
Noise, light, dust, fumes, which I think are probably inappropriate in this case, or other disturbance. But BE1 is an all-encompassing, if you like, policy which covers residential amenity.
Thank you, Chair. What I'm asking members to do is to concentrate on what aspects of residential amenity they've got particular concerns about. So are you saying it's noise from the residents and comings and goings? Not because if we say general residential amenity and we get to appeal, officers have got to defend that argument, and they need to know what you're concerned about. So is it just noise from the comings and goings of the residents?
Well, it does talk. I'm not really
taking sides here, but it does say here unreasonable levels of disturbance through traffic generation is one, and that has been clearly, I think, enunciated by the objector and also the ward councillor, which is one aspect of the BE1 that we're talking about here. And Councillor Birch, you wish to come in.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted some clarity on the objections from the police, because I can find no record of objections from the police. If they're going to be used as reasons for objection on the basis of antisocial behaviour, we need to be clear that there have actually been some official responses from the police, but I can't find any record of that.
Thank you very much, Councillor Birch. Councillor Matthews, I know you wish to come in here. Councillor Cross, have you finished with your reasons for justifying your proposal for refusal?
Yes, I think I have, Chair. Thank you.
So Councillor Birch, we'll come on to yours in a moment, and then Councillor Matthews, I know you've been waiting very patiently.
Thank you, Chairman. As I fully support what Councillor Spruce has already said, and my colleague Councillor Baker, I too have got knowledge of HMOs in my former life, and I'm a local. I've known that road all my life. Having attended the local school there as a kid. I would never drive down Chapel Lane at a choice because there's nowhere to park. The night we went for our meeting with the residents, I had to park in a side road. It was a freezing cold night, admittedly, that's where I drove. But that was in the evening, which would be fairly typical of a night where the residents are at home. How many times at this committee have we spoken about parking and inadequacies in new developments? 3-bed house, 2 spaces, a garage that you can't park in. Here we are looking at a property. This is a 6-bedroom house. It's going to become a 7-bedroom house in multiple occupation with 1 parking space. In paragraph 4.4 in the assessment, it clearly says the existing parking provision does not meet car parking standards set out in the Sustainable Design SPD. It then goes on to say no changes to the existing parking situation are proposed. So it's essentially compounding an inadequate provision already. I'm dumbfounded by that. And to suggest that a 7-person HMO would have any lesser impact on a 6-bedroom family home is ridiculous, because a 6-bedroom family home might have 2, 3, even 4 cars. Potentially a 7-bedroom HMO could have 7 cars. Or 7 vans, or a mixture of vans and cars. Knowing the road so well, living here all my life, you would never try and park in Chapel Lane because it's a narrow lane, it's a little lane with little cottages. And quite frankly, this proposal, the main thing that concerns me, apart from the amenity, which I'll mention in a minute, is the parking impact. You know, there's going to be an impact on Ivanhoe Road, going off that. And in terms of residential amenity, to suggest that a residential 6-bedroom house would have, to suggest that a 7-bedroom HMO would have the same level of amenity impact as a 6-bedroom house is once again, I can't understand that. So I support my colleagues in recommending a refusal, and I support Councillor Spruce. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Matthews. We have officers wishing to come in at this point, so I'm going to let the officers come in an order which they choose. Thank you. Kerry Challoner first.
Sorry, yeah, just to put the officer perspective on this. In terms of the fallback position for the applicant, that is, you can have a family dwelling house and you can convert it to a 6-bedroom HMO without the need for planning permission. So that could happen today, tomorrow. 6-bedroom HMO, there's no control over how many people. Whereas this application is to control the number of people, so you're controlling that down to 7. I hear what you're saying about the residential amenity and so on, but we don't have any objections from our environmental health team, and the police liaison officer had raised no objections either. So in terms of the evidence against it there, we're on shaky ground. The parking, yes, there is a shortfall as it is, but I think what the highways officer is saying that is good in terms of the situation. Is it going to make it any worse? In terms of the MPPF, we can only refuse, it says, if there's a severe impact, and that's paragraph 111. So is this extra person, this is what you need to think of as committee in bringing these reasons for refusal forward, is this going to, are we going to be able to demonstrate that this is a severe impact on Chapel Lane? And I think that's all I've got. In terms of the HMO Act, I would reiterate what my colleagues have said, that is building regulations. you might get planning permission and then fail at building reg stage, and then you'd have to come back to us if you were going to go over a 6-bedroom HMO. But it's just to reiterate the background there. I think that's quite an important part of this.
Okay, thank you very much, Kerry. Yes, just to obviously reiterate that were we to refuse this tonight, the applicant would still be able to convert this into a 6-bed HMO. Who else wants to speak, please? Jane, did you wish to come in? I think you do. Jane Cotton, Legal Officer.
Thank you, Chair. Just briefly, before members make a decision, just to remind you that the reasons that in the refusal are the fire safety, parking, highway safety, residential amenity, and you talked about it being contrary to B1. That's of the adjoining neighbours and the occupants. That's right, isn't it? Yeah. All I can say, members, is that in terms of the fire safety reason, I have checked while you were debating, and it is not a material planning consideration for this development, fire safety. It's something to be controlled through the building regulations. So if you did refuse it on that basis, we wouldn't be able to defend that reason at appeal. I appreciate the experience and the members brought to the debate, but unfortunately, it's not something that we can actually defend. So if that was pursued at appeal, I'm afraid we would be highly likely, if a cost application was made, to have a cost award against the authority on that, because it's not legally defensible. On the other reasons, you've had the officer's view that it's not possible in view of the highway authority to defend the reasons for refusal on highway safety and parking, and in terms of the antisocial behaviour, which wasn't included. No, that's right. That's not included in the reason for refusal. But in officer's view, there are no residential amenity issues, no B1 issues. But of course, it's a decision for members. That's all the advice we can give you. Thank you.
Jane, thank you very much indeed. Any other officers wish to come in before I just summarise? No, thank you. Right, Councillor Checkland, and also, yes, we need to go to a vote in a moment, please. Councillor Checkland.
Yes, thank you. We listened to the arguments. When I first left home, I went into wasn't called a house of multiple occupancy in those days. It was a shared house with 5 people. It was a way of getting on that first step of the ladder. And then when I bought my first house, I had 2 lodgers because I couldn't afford the mortgage. What we have to try and remember, we're not talking about hostel here. We're talking about a house of multiple occupancy, which is a place for people to begin their lives, to start on a ladder, which we've all started on at some time. It feels like a long time ago. I don't particularly want to go back there either. But the term socially deprived tenants, I think that's a little bit unfair. When I moved out, I was a bit depraved, but I wasn't necessarily socially deprived. I had a job and I needed somewhere to start. I just think we need to take that into account. There are no statutory agencies that are speaking against this. I accept the fact, I understand the parking issue, and we had this argument at the last planning meeting when we approved flats just at the bottom of the road next to the Greyhound pub which weren't allocated parking, because highways, the new strategy is if you're within walking distance of a town centre and you can reach a bus station or a train station. Now, I'm not saying I agree with that, but if the main agencies aren't objecting to it, it's very difficult for us to go against that, as you're hearing now in relation to what can and can't be defended. Maximum, if this isn't approved, it can go to a 6-bedroom HMO anyway, under permitted developments, with no limits on the number of people that can then live there. Some of these rooms sound quite big, so they could then have double beds. Presumably most of the rooms could have double beds anyway, so you could end up with up to 12 people there. So it's a difficult balance, and I understand concerns, changes in areas, but also I've expressed my point of view. I find it difficult to turn down just on the basis that young people have to start somewhere. And we need young people within Lichfield to sustain it.
Councillor Checkland, thank you very much indeed. You've done some of the summarising for me there. Thank you. Now we must move to a vote in a moment. I've got Councillor Anketel. Sorry.
We really have, because you have something that has been proposed and seconded.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to ask for a very, very quick comment and then from Councillor Evans too, and then we move on. Councillor Anketel, very briefly, please.
Thank you, Chair. I've consistently argued for more affordable housing for young people without much money. With these people living in this flat, it could be that there'll be fewer cars available. These people are unlikely to own a car, whereas in a family, they could have 2 cars in the family.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to cut you off there, Councillor Anketel, if you don't mind, because I do need to go to the vote. But thank you. Your point is valid and has been made. Thank you. Councillor Evans, you will be the final speaker. Thank you, and very quickly, if you would.
Chair. In view of what we've heard, I would move the officer's recommendation.
We've got to take a vote on the original one first. Okay, thank you. Okay. Right, Councillor Anketel, I probably cut you off slightly short there. Do you want to just say anything else before I did cut you off, please?
My son lived in a house of multiple occupation in London. They had a large lounge. I couldn't make out where the lounge was here, but my one concern would be about the mental health of the people living there if there wasn't a large enough room. But otherwise, I would go with the officer's recommendation.
So what you're saying is you would second the proposal that's been made by Councillor Evans to approve. Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so I think that's it, isn't it? Councillor Evans, did you just wish to say anything else? Or no, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so as the point has been made out, if we were to refuse this tonight, which of course is your prerogative, it would mean that the applicant would still have a fallback position, and that is an HMO for 6 bedrooms, and the council would have less control over the occupancy of that than it would if, ironically, we were to give permission for a 7-bedroom HMO. So that's a rather, you might consider that a rather invidious choice, but it is a choice that you have. And so I'm just reminding you of that fact. So we go on to the vote now. It's been recommended for, proposed for refusal by Councillor Cross. That was seconded by Councillor Baker. Members, could I just ask you please to vote on that? So that is to vote, excuse me, for refusal of this application. As I say, proposed by Councillor Cross, seconded by Councillor Baker. A show of hands if you wish to support refusal. I think that's 3. It is 3, isn't it? Yeah. Those against refusal, please. 1, 2. So that's 5. Okay. Any abstentions, please? No. Okay. So that vote for refusal of the application, the officer's recommendation, is lost. So we now go on to the next vote, which has been proposed by Councillor Evans and seconded by Councillor Anketel, and that is in support of the officer's recommendation to approve this conversion to a 7-bed HMO.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Just to say, just to pick up on one of the comments from the applicant who talked about the maximum occupancy numbers, although in the description it talks about a 7-person HMO, I've checked with the planning officer, and the officer's advises that strictly speaking, we should include an additional condition to make sure that is the maximum occupants. So what we'd be recommending is that they move to grant permission has been moved and seconded, but if the mover and seconder agree to include an additional condition, to limit the number of occupants of the HMO to 7 as a belt and braces, and delegate the wording of that to the principal planning officer in consultation with the chair and the vice chair, if the mover and seconder were happy to do that. It is in the description, but it's a belt and braces.
Yes, Chairman, I agree with that.
Thank you, Councillor Evans.
7.
And Councillor Anketell?
So do I.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So the proposal then is for approval in line with the officer's recommendation, but with a condition that the maximum number of occupants is 7 and cannot exceed that number. So that is what we're voting on now, members. Could I please have, that's been proposed by Councillor Evans, it's been seconded by Councillor Anketell. Can I please have a show of hands on that basis to support the proposal to approve this application in line with the officer's recommendation, including that condition to limit the number of occupants to 7. A show of hands, please, members. Those in favour? That's 5. And against, please. That's 5-3. So by a vote of 5-3, that application has been approved by this planning committee here at Lichfield this evening, which is the 3rd of April 2023. I thank the speakers, I thank all the members of the public for attending, and members, I thank you very much indeed for your thoughts, your comments, your deliberations and your decision. Thank you. Yes, indeed. We're now going underway with the meeting. We've reconvened. Members, thank you very much. On to item, well, it's item 3 of the list of applications. And this is 22/01377/FUL. This is Littleton House, Pipe Lane, Pipe Ridware, Rugeley. To take us through this, this is going to be Claire again, isn't it? Yeah, Claire, you're taking us through this. So Claire Saint, when you're ready, Claire, we're ready for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, this is Littleton House application. This is for the demolition of a single-storey part of the existing dwelling and storage building, and then conversion, extension and alteration of domestic outbuilding to form I did make this change, sorry. To form one new 2-bedroom dwelling and retain the existing dwelling that's also on the site currently. So this is, so basically this will, that's the aerial photograph, so you can see. To the south is Wheelwright's Cottage, which is grade 2 listed. And that is a former church that's been converted into a theatre. And as you can see, we're in Pipe Ridware, which is a hamlet, I would suggest. The nearest dwelling is that to the north of the site, which is another farmhouse. And you can see here the garage and outbuildings that are going to be converted, with including the existing access, which will be retained and will be subdivided for the 2 properties. And they're making some improvements to the access as well, because although I have been down there, it is fairly open. They're going to make the visibility slightly better. As you can see here, this is the garage that's being converted. That's been kept, that's been retained. Photograph 3 and 4 show the various different elevations of that. And that is where, if you can see there, that is where the subdivision will take place, basically. The proposals mainly include the reuse of a substantial existing large outbuilding, which will be extended to provide a new dwelling. In addition to these elements, the proposal is noted that a single-storey element of the main property would be demolished. Let me show you. This is the conversion plan that was sent. So initially, the plans showed less conversion, which I negotiated with the applicant in order to retain some of the existing, which they have done. And now you can see the red area is the bit that will actually be demolished, and the black is what is being retained, converted. And in this plan below, you can see how that will fit in the site. So the exact access is coming up from the south. That will be the parking for the existing dwelling, and then that will be the parking area and the amenity area for the new dwelling. This is the existing, and and this is the proposed floor plan. So there you can see where the subdivision will be. And just to reiterate, that is a 2-bedroom dwelling, so that will be providing a good housing mix for the area as well. Which does bring me on to the reason why it's here is that Highways have objected on sustainability grounds due to the location of Pipe Ridware not being a settlement. They haven't objected on access or parking. And as I mentioned, they're going to be improved with this application and are considered safe and adequate. I don't think there's anything I'll show you. This is the design was also agreed with the negotiated with the applicant. As you can see, it fits in well with the rural area, and that is the front elevation. And the side, and that's it there. That's recommended for approval.
Claire, thank you very much indeed. We don't have any speakers for this one. We do for the next one. But yes, as Claire has pointed out, the reason that this has come before the Planning Committee this evening is because of the County Council's objection. This is a matter which is being looked at, and there will be some discourse about this between Artemis and County Highways officers, because this is going to become a recurring theme where County Council have somewhat arbitrarily now come to the conclusion that any development in the countryside has to be served by public transport. Well, I live in a rural area, and I know that the more rural you become, the less likely you are to see any public transport. So effectively, what they're proposing is almost a moratorium on rural development, which of course would be slightly perverse. I hope I'm not using language which is inappropriate there. That is a matter for our planning officers, etc., to thrash out with the County Council Highways, because I think we all agree that this is an unsustainable situation in terms of finding all rural development does not comply with a sustainability matrix if there is no public transport. And we all know the very parlous state of public transport in rural areas particularly. So any members wish to make comments? Councillor Birch, Councillor Checkland, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think you've summed up my views. When I read through it, I just couldn't find anything to object to. And when I got to the highways part, I found it to be somewhat puzzling, spurious, untenable. I think my first thought was, well, how do you ever build anything in the countryside unless there's a bus stop outside your house, which is basically what I could think of on that one. So I can't see that as a reasonable or, no pun intended, sustainable way to manage development. And I would like to recommend that we accept the recommended outcome from the officer, please.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. And I think we've got everybody now. Councillor Checkland, I think you wanted to speak, didn't you?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's bonkers, and I'd second.
Okay. That's actually a word that doesn't appear very often in planning committee meetings, and I think there are occasions when
Councillor Checkland, when it's singularly appropriate. Okay. Now, got other people wishing to speak, or are we going to go straight to the vote? Thank you. Same with Councillor.
Yeah, I was going to second it, Chair.
Thank you.
I'm pleased to see what staff's going to say, because if they're going to follow this mode, it means that there'll be no more development in Fradley. And I'm pleased to hear that.
Councillor Cross, I think that might be one conclusion which you are perhaps not meant to draw from this policy, but thank you. Right, well, I think the reason that you're all queuing up was simply because you all wanted to second the proposal to approve this, which was being made by Councillor Birch. Unless I'm mistaken, that, yes, Councillor Matthews.
What I was going to say was, knowing those villages pretty well, it's one of the most remote ridgeways of all of them. It's particularly difficult to get to. So I just think the whole suggestion is just unsustainable. Sorry.
Councillor Matthews, if I can add to the slightly bonkers nature of this, can I just suggest that although it is a sleepy hamlet, in the next few years, it's going to see HS2 driven straight through the middle of it. So we have this ironic situation where there's no public transport, but the village is being very badly affected by a huge national infrastructure policy, which many of us find quite strange to come to terms with, but there you are. Can we go to the vote, please? It's been proposed by Councillor Birch, seconded by Councillor Checkland. The proposal is for approval. Can I have a show of hands, please? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. That's 8, isn't it? 8. Okay. Thanks very much indeed. We can now move on. So you see, some of the applications we're hearing tonight are very straightforward, and others are slightly more complex. We now move on to the final application of the evening. This is Hadley Gate Farm, Hadley Gate Lane, Hadley Gate. And to take us through this one is Kerry. Kerry Challoner, when you're ready, please And the reason this is being brought to planning committee tonight, members, you will be well aware, is exactly the same, and it mirrors the reason the last one came here. It's county council objecting on the basis of rural transport links are inadequate for further development in the countryside. Kerry, when you're ready, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, as Chair's just pointed out, similar reasons to the last application you've just looked at is the reason why it's before you this evening. And the difference with this one is it actually got consent in 2019, and unfortunately the consent lapsed. So the applicant has been forced to reapply. So it was approved a few years ago. So we're looking at a barn, an existing barn, which if I can get my thing to work, is there. Quite a traditional barn with a little extension on the end. What I would say is this is quite close to the HS2 zone. It's outside the limits of the Act, though. HS2 kind of runs across here. So just to run through the photographs there, you've got a traditional barn. There'll be obviously there's conditions attached in the recommendation to secure decent materials and window design and so on. And that's the back of the barn. There's not, if I just move on to the pictures. Yeah, so the majority of the windows are on the front and the side, but there is a front door there. And there's a door there. Access comes through the existing access. Highways didn't raise any objections to the highway safety implications of this, and there's space for 2 cars at this end as well. These are just the proposed, which are quite similar to the existing, to be fair. And we're looking at a two-bedroom barn. In terms of ecology, the application was supported by ecology surveys, which not only set out methods of work, and they also set out that there should be a bat loft incorporated into the development, and also bird boxes in the trees around the site. So that would all be secured through the condition. And the recommendation is to approve, subject to the conditions set out in the report, and that concludes my presentation.
Kerry Challoner, thank you very much indeed for taking us through that. So we have, it's not a speaker, but we do have a written representation this evening, which is going to be read out by Christine Lewis on my left in just a second. This comes from Nia Borsey of Fisher German, and she is the applicant's agent. Christine, you have 5 minutes, but I don't need to tell you that when you're ready to start. So Christine Lewis reading out the words of Nia Borsey, Fisher German, the applicant's agent. Thank you.
The application at Hadleygate Farm is seeking approval following a lapse of the previous approved permission permitted in 2019 to convert the agricultural building into a residential dwelling. The officer's recommendation is approval. Since the 2019 approval, there are no proposed changes to the proposed scheme in any way. This application is an exact resubmission. No objections were raised in 2019, including Highways, who notably have objected to this application, and is why we are presenting this case at Planning Committee today. A structural survey confirms the agricultural building is capable of conversion. The proposal aligns with current national and local planning policy. A unilateral undertaking has been prepared, signed and paid for by the applicant in relation for the recreational mitigation of the Cannock Chase Sack. The proposed dwelling will essentially become the replacement house for Hadleygate Farm following the loss of the main dwelling by HS2 Phase 2A. Therefore, there is no proposed increase in dwelling numbers within the applicant's ownership, and traffic movements are posed to be no different than now. This application is simply allowing the applicant to continue living at Hadleygate Farm and become the farmhouse to the holding. Substantial delays have occurred with HS2, and this is delaying their takeover of the main house. So it's no fault of the applicant why works could not start on the barn conversion as yet under the previous permission. It is welcoming that the officer is recommending approval, and equally recognises that although highways are objecting over sustainability issues, the issues raised should be weighted against other considerations in this particular case. This being outweighed in the context of the NPPF and local plan policies. The officer is recommending approval. No other objections have been raised, notwithstanding highways, the rationale behind this being determined at committee. The proposal aligns with planning policy. The relevant unilateral undertaking has been completed, and the officer's clear reasoning for approval is detailed within their comprehensive report. Therefore, it is respectfully requested that the application is approved without delay.
Christine Lewis, thank you very much. The words there of Nia Borsia Fisher-German, the applicant's agent. Members, you've heard the reasons. Yes, indeed. Councillor Cross, please.
Thank you, Chair. As we've been told, this was approved back in 2019, and I'd like to make a proposal that we support the officers and approve this application.
Councillor Cross, thank you very much indeed for that. Oh, Councillor Matthews.
Second that, Chairman.
Oh, right, okay. So what you're going to do? Oh, you want to say, okay, so thank you very much, Councillor Matthews, for seconding. Councillor Baker, my Vice Chairman, wishes to speak.
I was going to do that, and I welcome the condition 7, the bat roost and bird roost, and I'm pleased to see the bat roosting will be incorporated, I believe, into the building. Could I also ask, along with the bird nesting boxes, that we incorporate Swift boxes? Or Swift bricks, I think they're called, wherever possible, because I think there are Swifts in that area.
Okay, thank you. That would be okay to incorporate that as a part of the condition, would it? Very Swift bricks. I have seen them myself.
Swift bricks aren't specified in so the condition basically says that the bird nesting boxes are set out in the report that was submitted. Now that didn't go as far as specifying Swift bricks. So if we want to do that, we would have to vary the condition. You could perhaps delegate that to officers.
Yeah.
I think that's the wish of the members, I think, Kerry. Yes, please. Thank you very much. Okay, Councillor Baker, have you finished?
Yes.
Councillor Checkland, please.
Just an observation.
No, turn yours off, Tom. Oh, it's with Kelly Fathead. That's it. You're right now. Good work.
Should work now.
No, just press the. That's it, Jamie.
Sorry, it was just an observation, really, in that first time round, highways, the technician was in charge of the decision, saying no objection. His name was Simon Hill. Now it's the assistant director that's made that decision to object, and that's Simon Hill. It's just an observation.
It's always possible it's not the same Simon Hill. But that would be a very, very unusual coincidence, I think it's true to say. Thank you, Councillor Checkland. Any other members, please, wishing to speak? So we've covered the issue about the Swift bricks then. Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. On that basis then, members, we have on page 81, in the conclusion, the officer's recommendation is to approve this. We are obviously cognizant of the county highways reservations. We've discussed that. It's been proposed for approval by Councillor Cross and it's been seconded by Councillor Matthews. I'd be very grateful, members, if you could please, a show of hands would suggest to me your views on this, please. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That again is unanimous. That's 8 in favour of approval. Members, thank you very much indeed. That rounds off this evening. It also rounds off more than the evening. It actually rounds off the end of my era as chairman of this parish council. Of this parish, I'm chair of the parish council as well, so I sometimes forget which one I'm at. Thank you very much indeed for your attendance over the last few months and years. It's always been a pleasure to be here as chairman of this planning committee. But this may well be the final time that I sit in this chair. So this meeting may well be my swan song in terms of planning. I can only say I'm extremely grateful for the time that you've all devoted, not just when you've attended meetings, but the preparation of. And I know that for many of you, the reports are often over 100 pages long. and the time taken to prepare properly for meetings like this can be considerable. It just remains for me to say a very big thank you to you all, and I may well see you back in a few months' time, a few weeks' time, a month's time. But of course, that is entirely in the lap of the gods. I thank you very much, and I wish you all a very good night. And I'd like to thank the officers who've attended this evening as well. Thank you.